close to the South Carolina border, so we sell some in South Carolina. I got into real estate probably it couldn't have been a worse time as far as the market goes. I mean, probably the best time as far as cutting your teeth and learning how to do real estate. So my first full year was 2008.
Oh, cool.
So our market turned in 2007, unbeknownst to anyone that was in it, but then the financial crisis in 2008. So I started out, solo agent. The first, I look at my business in marketing pillars. So I've got 5 main marketing pillars that I've built out over the years. And I think what I've done differently than most teams and most agents that build something is that I go really deep on one thing before I move to the next thing. So it's not jumping around from platform to platform or trying this or trying that. It's really going deep on something and getting the returns before you go somewhere else. So in the beginning, in the early days, it was to grind out buyer leads, and I was just all over buyer lead gen and just in front of buyers as much as I can get. I brought on, so the concept of leverage is something that we'll definitely talk about today, especially given what you do and the amazing amounts of leverage that you bring to not only my team but to probably hundreds of agents. I don't even know how many clients you have now, if it's thousands or what.
So we just hit a milestone. We have 1,000 virtual assistants, full-time virtual assistants placed with clients.
Yeah.
We hit that last week, so it's pretty exciting.
And it's funny, we were at an event, and this is how this hangout came to be. We were at a sort of mastermind event, and we were just chatting about my business, and you're like, man, it's so cool, and I wish you were a client of MyOutDesk, because then we could do. And I was like, dude, I've been a client of yours for like 4.5 years. Roy is probably easily my best employee.
Yeah.
And I say that, I mean, I've got killer employees, but the one thing, and just a quick plug on just leverage and outsourcing. The cool thing about not just the geo arbitrage, so the financial arbitrage in going to a different country to get support, but it's just a totally different work ethic. So I mean, I can't, in the early days when I was in contact with my VA, there'd be days where I heard like a chicken in the background, or like it was loud, and I'm like, Roy, what's going on over there? He's like, well, Mr. Lars, we had a typhoon come through yesterday, and the electric is out of my house, and I had to come to a local restaurant, and I'm in their kitchen. And I'm like, if it even, there's a risk of snow, my office shuts down for a week. And people take snow days, and all of a sudden they're non-productive. So, that's one just huge benefit, that you just get a workhorse in a labor force when you go offshore. So kudos to what you do and the mission you have.
What do they do for you? Just so people know, like, how you implement them in best practice.
I have both of them are, well, one of this, like Roy is marketing, mainly listing marketing and listing coordination. He does everything in the market, in the listing, onboarding, bringing a new listing on board, and servicing a listing that we don't have to do locally. Gotcha. So, Kara, who's our listing client care coordinator, she's able to elevate what she does in terms of client contact and making sure clients are happy. And a lot of the behind the scenes stuff happens. He does weekly seller reports. He does, making sure they're on every website, orders home warranties, anything that someone can do anywhere, he does, and he's integrated into our processes. So, he's just part of the team.
That's awesome.
And then we've got Leah, I think she's been with me for over 3 years now. She helps more on the actually marketing our listings. So we do a lot of cool things with getting our listings out onto different websites and some ninja YouTube stuff, and that she's really, really good at. And she's just, I joke about, and I probably shouldn't say this because people think I'm probably seriously, I pass her multiple times a day because she works on a computer that is in my office, and it's on the way to the bathroom. So when I'm in on Tuesdays, I pass my favorite employee. I'm like, she doesn't talk back. I see her working there, and so it's really cool.
So you have a video set up so that there's just a screen, and if you ever need to talk to her, you can just kind of walk over and say hello?
No, she runs out of a computer in my office. So
I got you.
Remotely and runs a computer out of my office, so she does everything through a local connection.
Right.
So that's the setup that we have, and by having two strong VAs, I mean, we keep our overhead, probably at least 50% what we'd have to pay, somebody locally. So it really is a big, big payoff. So getting back to the early days, so it really was, getting busy at buyer leads, mastering that one thing, mastering scripts, convincing somebody, they sign up on a website, to get face-to-face with me. It's something that we're still good at. We still put, 8 to 10 buyer internet leads under contract every month. Consistently because of that one skill set I developed early on. I added my first local admin. Really, I probably wasn't 6 months in the business. I was busy enough where I knew I needed that leverage.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably 12, 14 months later, I hired my first buyer agent. So that was kind of the birth of the team. Was about a year and a half into the business was when the team actually started.
Was that the right order, looking back now?
100%. Yeah. I mean, I still teach. I'm gonna bring up something to kind of talk to because it'll help us give a good visual. Yeah. So, when I look at my real estate business and how I progressed, and I'm not going to go through all these. This is from an intensive workshop that I just held, and there's just some cool slides that I wanted to bring up. I worked against a model where there's a 3-step model with principal, agent, team leader, and corporate model. And this is still the same model that has the least amount of risk, that is the most profitable, the 3 stages, to actually bring on a client care person. Whether that person is, if I were to do it over again, I'm sure I could leverage offshore admin through MyOutDesk better than I even do now. So I'll make that comment as well.
Well, let me ask you a question though. Would you have, like, and this is, I mean, I get this question all the time, and it's always like maybe not, but would you hire physical first and then leverage them with a virtual assistant, or would you go virtual assistant first before you, as like the primary assistant, and to get yourself a little bit more leverage early on? Yeah, I'm just curious.
I definitely, and that's what I teach. I mean, I have clients of mine that have 5, 6 VA offshore VAs through MyOutDesk, and that's exactly what they do. They have 1 or 2 key administrators in the office that run a team of VAs offshore.
Right.
So they get the same amount of impact and effort and output, if not more, because the people overseas aren't loafing, they're not socializing, their work ethic is different. And so this is the model I followed: client care person, and then build out the buyer agent team, then divide it up into more of an admin team and sales team. You're bringing on a listing partner. You're transitioning from buyers into sellers. This is when I got really good at direct response marketing to expired, so my listing inventory grew. That was my second pillar. Reaching out to my sphere, database marketing. That's the third pillar that I really focused on. And then once I built up a listing inventory, the fourth pillar was yard marketing, and just kind of knowing the path. And our current org structure, it looked a little more complicated than it is. There's only 7 agents. We have 1 showing agent, 5 buyer agents, 2 listing agents, 1 seller inside sales, 1 buyer inside sales. We have a buyer client care, a listing client care. We have executive services. This is really back office stuff, a first impressions admin person, $10 an hour, and then we've got 2 VAs currently. But if I had to do this again, I could have these 2 positions be virtual assistant, buyer client care and listing client care.
Right.
It just so happens that I have killer employees in those positions, and I'm profitable enough where it doesn't hurt me to pay for it. So
let me ask you a question. Like this is another question that I get a bazillion times. When you're building a team and kind of going through this structure, would you? I mean, you did it through buyers, but would you have started with sellers and just kind of focused on them first, or is this you say go buyers then sellers?
No, I mean, yeah, like MREA, Millionaire Real Estate Agent, Keller Williams, they listings lead leverage, right? But for me, it didn't feel right to go into someone's house and with no experience and tell them that I'm their best option, I don't know, it just didn't feel right. It's the same way I didn't go out to my sphere, I went out to my sphere like 18 months in the business is when I really started telling people that I'm legit. I sold 71 homes by the end of my first year. So there was a part year in there, but still, I mean, at that point I was willing to reach out to people and say, hey, yeah, I know what I'm doing here.
Right.
So it's the same thing with listings. I just did it, and there's still less competition for buyers. Buyers through just proximity or getting them on the phone or meeting them at an open house, or you've got a really good shot at working with somebody if you just get in front of them.
Right.
And this is kind of the path. If you can see my screen, this is kind of the path that I followed. It was really in the beginning of every real estate agent's career. It's really a survival type thing. I mean, we know by the end of the second year, only 20% of people that get licensed are still active in real estate. So the mortality rate in real estate is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Most agents don't get past the ramp stage. So what I do, and I help agents do this now through my coaching. I help people go from, get through the build stage as quickly as possible. That's the most painful stage. So ramp scale into the inspire phase, which is lead and exit. Then ultimately own a business, something that doesn't have to rely on you every day to keep it running. And so I would say that the 4 marketing pillars and going deep and tracking ROI, that's one thing that I do a really good job on, is tracking everything I spend. If you're going to spend $1, you really should hope to make $8 to $10 top line on that spend, because you've got to start thinking about it. If you're paying a buyer's agent or a listing agent, you've got to structure it in a way where you can afford to pay them. My gross margins, one thing I'll say too, because it's critical, is my gross margins last year were 67%. And so some people will say, well, that's not fair. How can you pay your agents only 33%? It's because we've got systems and we provide value to our agents, where I do believe that my agents in my systems will make more money with less risk and less effort than they could on their own. So they're highly paid, but it's not because they're not productive like most teams.
So what do you take away? Because this is so it's great we're getting into these. This is for everybody who's on the call. This is like the standard conversations when you're building a team. So the question that I always get is, how do I provide value to my agents? And banks do it by like owning all of the business. They call them touch points, right? You have an ATM, you have a credit card, you have a online bill pay, you have direct deposit with your bank, and as long as you do 4 of those things, the banks know 98% of the time if there's a problem, you're going to stick with them because it's too hard to switch. What have you created like that, Lars, and what value do you provide to the listing agent and the buyer agent so they don't just go out and compete with you?
Yeah, so and we've had very little of that, and even if it happens, it's irrelevant, because we're so strong in lead gen and training agents to be productive, that I think right now we have 82% of our business this year. It was actually higher last year, but 82% of our business this year, we've written 110 deals. 83 or 84 of them were from company generated leads or converted by the company.
Gotcha.
So on the listing side, 90+% of the appointments are set for the listing agents. So we're big direct response marketers, and our phone rings over 90% of the time. It's through an inbound call, people reaching out to us or filling out a web form. And there's a lot of power in that. And on the buy side, it's still really high. It's about 65-70% of business on the buy side is from leads that we generate or appointments that we set through our inside sales efforts. So it's owning that part of the process, the lead gen, and also helping them through structure, tracking, and accountability, helping agents do better than they would do if left to their own vices. So it's really a tricky balance, but I just firmly believe that our agents, they're all making more than 6 figures, which is really good pay. Less than 5% of our agents in our market net more than $100,000.
Right.
And so I know that, and so all of my agents will net more than $100,000. So I have 100% of my agents will make more than $100,000. One of my agents, 2 others will get over 150, and 1 will get close to $200,000 this year.
That's beautiful.
But at the right margins. So if someone's making $200,000 on my team, I'm grossing $400 from them.
Right.
Yeah.
So okay, owning the lead gen is super important, and what that means is it's companies' dollars being spent on your marketing and company dollar converting. So you're basically taking that away. What about the other side, which is admin side? What do you do for your agents that is different than other brokers?
Yeah. So I mean, it really comes down to we try to get the right people to focus on their unique abilities. So all of our agents are required to be an inside salesperson for themselves. So we don't have inside sales entirely broken out, but we do give them appointments and really warm leads. So
Mm-hmm.
we've got an inside sales effort that complements what they're doing on their own, but giving them the structure to do those things. That's one of the things, but also once a file goes under contract, there's really very little for our buyer agents to do. So we
Mm-hmm.
hand that over to Tia. She's our closing coordinator. She's got it dialed in where she could probably close 350 buyer sides, and we've got just one person. We don't have a transaction coordinator for all transactions. We have a single buyer client care coordinator.
Right.
She has mastered bringing her resources to bear, not just her own resources, but the vendors that we use. We use a handful of vendors. We get all of our buyers, legitimately. They have a choice, but we say the process is going to go way smoother if you use this lender, this attorney,
Right.
this inspector. And most of them do that, and it just streamlines everything. So to get them out selling as much as possible on the listing side, it's easy because it's just we're so well known in our market now, and our direct response marketing initiatives get so many calls to come in. I mean, when I look at our tracker, we track every call that comes in, and it's crazy how much business is coming in and reaching out to us.
Sure. Well, so it's important to understand a lot of agents are doing outbound, basically lead gen. What you've done is you've created marketing streams that are inbound marketing based, right? So people call you. Those leads they're easier to close, they're better to work with, people are coming to you. Those are the kind of leads that everybody wants to have, right? I mean,
Yeah, totally. I'm gonna try to pull up something here real quick. I just want to show. So you should see a screen here that has a bunch of numbers on it.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think this is only about 20 of them, but I have like 30 different tracking phone numbers. So anytime we get a call into our office, this company Dialogue Tech, it used to be called If by Phone, but so I track every call, I record every call, I route every call, and I get reports like this to see where stuff's coming from. So our yard marketing efforts, we've got 3 signs in the front yards of our properties, which is significant.
What are the 3 signs? Why 3?
Yeah, so buyers, if you have a single yard sign with your picture on it, right, the typical real estate yard sign, it's pretty threatening, right? Buyers don't want to talk to a person. So we have a 24/7 hotline type sign, through VoicePad, which is a third-party service, and then we have a everyday open house sign as well, which are fewer leads, but they're really high quality. Someone that wants to get in to see the property. So we carry about 60 active, anywhere between 50 and 60 active listings, probably 25, 30 under contract, so maybe 90 or so total. And we get some pretty good call volume on it. So this is the last 60 days or so, and it's about 330. There's a few other ones here, about 350, 375 yard sign calls. And we just have a routing system where if they're not answered by the opportunity time agent, they're followed up. They go out to the 5 agents at once, and it's an over 90% answer rate on our phone calls that come in.
So let me ask you a question. Like, do you track back when somebody successfully gets into contact, and then second, when they get into a contract of sort with that buyer or that seller?
Meaning, do we lead source? Do we track lead sources?
Matchback. It's a matchback report, right? So you're creating marketing. You've got a sign. A phone number comes. You line that up with a contract, and you say this, has this many percentage. Or I'm just curious.
Yeah, totally. So right now, I can track, I think, 92% of my business back to the specific dollar I spent.
Right.
Yeah, which is critical. I mean, it's just critically important.
Nobody does that, huh?
No, it's just surprising, and it's not complicated. It's a little bit of effort setting up the systems and just taking your time to do it. It took me years and years to set it up, but the way that I help people do it is not really that complicated. And it doesn't cost extra money. You're wasting a lot of money by not doing it, really.
But okay, so and this goes to our next point. So if you and this isn't a plug, guys. This is just like this is probably one of those things that Lars is like really good at. So if you go to larsstrategysession.com, you can actually book a 30-minute. Is it 30 minutes, 20 minutes? How long is it with you?
Yeah, so it'll be just an intro call. We'll get on the phone for 15, 20 minutes, and really just to dig into your business honestly and see if there are areas that I can help you with. The part of what I really enjoy, when you look at this here, it's helping people, get from the ramp, so the survival phase. That's not something I really get jazzed about. It's helping people go from the build phase, so ramping, getting 2 to 6 homes per month, getting to 6 to 12 homes per month, getting through that 100 home barrier, and then getting into this. This is the most fun you'll have, and it's some of the systems come in the build phase, right? So the scaling. But the inspire phase is really where I have to have a lot of fun and the visioning and really getting this thing to have a life of its own. And it's a whole bunch of new skills. And the point, when I look at our mission, and just real quick, it's not a plug, but this is the point of it all, is it's our mission is to build a highly profitable business through the use of sustainable systems and empower people in order to systematically increase your net worth and time away from the office. So. That's what I think about when I think about my own business. I'm trying to get in there less hours a week, so to go from Tuesdays to half days to no days, and really truly empower people and align their financial goals with their vision for their lives, and just to serve the team deeply. So yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Hey, let's go back to the build stage, because I think a lot of the viewers are going to be in that stage, and I think that's and I pulled up your larsstrategysession.com mostly because I think that's your sweet spot. That's the spot, building systems, measuring results, tracking back to dollars, and really kind of we call it scale, man. You're talking about scaling a business at that point.
Yeah.
And so let's go back to that middle build stage and talk a little bit about what you've learned and the experience, and like just try to bring value to those people that are in that stage.
Yeah. So one thing I want to go through it. And it's the most value I can add to anyone that is in the midst of it or has tried to recruit buyer agents. So if you talk to 10 team leaders that you think they have a legitimate team, you talk about their biggest frustration, and they're actually building their team around the fact that they think they can't acquire good buyer agents, and they think that they can't get the margins in line, and they think my compensation structure doesn't work, and just all these crazy things that aren't reality. So I look for, this is the most pain I've suffered, is hiring the wrong people in those roles. So there's 7 things. So if you're listening to this live, or you're listening to recording, whatever, write down, get a pen and a paper.
Get a pen right now.
This is like a whole bunch of wasted effort and time training people that aren't going to be successful, and a whole lot of saved dollars on lead conversion efforts that aren't going to happen. So the first thing we look for, and one of the more important ones, is that the person, a buyer agent, has to be, if not the primary income earner for their family, they have to be a very necessary income for their family. And for our market, we want them to want to make 100 grand, but really we want to give them a vision toward 150, and really understand where they're coming from, and know how much of an impact that's going to have for them. So if they're a secondary income, if they're a housewife or a house husband, or their income doesn't matter, they're not going to be driven to results. Every one of my agents is a primary income earner in their family. I think 4 of the 7 are the sole income earners of their family. It's critical. Number 2 is a record of achievement, and they can demonstrate it. So I don't care if they have real estate experience, as much as if they're an achiever and they can actually demonstrate things that they've achieved. That doesn't require much explanation. Number three.
Well, hold on. I think it does, because I'm just saying, like, your achievements and my achievements and maybe some of the viewers' achievements are going to be much different than the person that we're going to hire, right? So, like, what level, like, assets and money in the bank, like.
No, not even. Yeah, I mean, just so we'll ask questions like, tell me about an accomplishment that you're proud of.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be I could be talking to a 24-year-old where the only accomplishment they were proud of is that they started a club that didn't exist at their college, and they grew it from an idea into 12 members, and it's still running strong, and they have alumni events now. I mean, it could be something like that.
But you want to be impressed by it.
Yeah, like it has to be something meaningful. Like if they're like, I don't really know. I mean, achievement. I mean, I had a kid once. Like you want to see some fire in what they're talking about.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and so number three, we're pretty deliberate about accountability, tracking, and what's involved in the position, and we explain it. And so number three is that they have to be able to adhere to the system. And so we'll talk about their past experience and accountability and their comfort level with it. A lot of people get into real estate thinking it's just going to be this come and go as you please type thing, and sales are just going to happen, and it doesn't work that way. Number four, and I know you guys know this as well, personality profile. So we disc profile everyone. We do a values index. We also do an attribute. So we do the Intermetrics 3 profiles, and we do believe in that system.
Okay, so who's a salesperson? Who's a buyer's agent? Who's a listing agent? And who's an admin?
Yeah, so a buyer agent, we're looking for someone who's a mid-D, high-I, mid-S. We can have a little bit higher S. It doesn't matter so much, and then low C. High C's have bit us in the butt before, and high D's are a pain in the ass to be around. I know it because I'm a high D, and it's exhausting. Being around high D's is just exhausting.
What are you talking about, man? I'm a high D.
I apologize to my wife at times for being my personality.
Yeah.
So that's number four. So number five is really some kind of internal drive, some motivation. We'll just ask them why do you get out of bed in the morning? What's your bigger drive? And sometimes it gets personal. For me, mine is I just didn't have a great upbringing. My dad was absent, for my whole life, and somehow I just worked hard, and I didn't want to be a burden on anybody, and it translated into me achieving. And so we get answers like that, and to me that's meaningful. Someone who's achieved at sports before, those are good candidates. Someone who's gone through something quicker than people before professionally, a sales training program or whatnot. So that's number five. Number six is, we'll ask people, where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years from now? And we'll get some people to say like, hey, yeah, so I'm using this as a stepping stone to starting my own team. And so number six is we want to find people that want to be a part of a team and not lead a team. And
it goes back to not hiring a high D, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. So really making the right hires from a team perspective and a culture perspective. And then number seven is no personal drama. We had an agent move into the market, follow her boyfriend who moved here, and 2 months later her boyfriend moved and she moved. And so we look for people that have stability, that have children, that have been around for a while. They're local, not the flighty type people, and that's not too hard to find out. We just ask them, what do you do outside of real estate? So what kind of hobbies do you have, and they'll pretty much open up to us. So, and that's it. So I think that's pretty valuable. I mean, if you have to develop your own screen, but in there is a good start. You just need to know what you're looking for in agents and be willing to turn your back on somebody if it doesn't fit that profile.
And not hire out of pain. I mean, we're talking about leverage right now because that's, the virtual assistant world leverage. But a biggest mistake I see is people, I need an admin or I need a buyer's agent, and this guy knows what he's doing, and so it'll be easy to add him, or it's a friend or a family or whatever, and they just don't spend the time to vet. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
We actually do. I added dinner with a spouse. And I think you do that. I don't know. Maybe you do it. Maybe you don't. I don't know. But like my wife has a great perspective on people, And sometimes I want to know if the wife is crazy or if the husband is crazy, because that'll speak to them. And will they order a lot of drinks, or will they, you know, have table manners, So I like spending as much time up front as possible before you make an offer.
Yeah. And what was the one you said before that? You said something before that.
Don't hire out of pain.
Yeah.
Or people that, I mean, you can hire people that you know, but you have to then put different glasses on and actually go through a process that's predetermined. And no matter what, or the pressure, because I'll have applicants be like, hey, you need to make an offer to me this week because I'm thinking about blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hey, I'm out. I can't do an offer in a week. It's just not, I mean, unless I quit my job full time and focus on you, like I won't be able to actually make an offer. So for me, it's always about like, how crazy are they? Could I hang out with them outside of work? Do I admire and respect them? Did they do a good job raising their family?
Yeah. And we also find, in the real estate world, we find that like traditional sort of quote unquote veteran agents typically don't make a good fit for our team. They think real estate is done a certain way. They don't get the high volume. They don't understand that.
And you need high volume in your model, right?
Yeah, I mean, we want people that want to work hard and get paid well.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, cool. So, I have something here about the importance of a self-managed team. I want you to kind of touch on that, because that to me is another difference. Because so I'm at a conference. There's a guy who's going to do 400 deals this year, and another person was like, you can't go do that other business. You've got a real estate. You've got to focus on your real estate team. You're doing so much business, but that's not your perspective. And I value it. I like it. What does that mean for you, a self-managed team?
Yeah, and there's probably two perspectives on that. So early on in my career, probably the first book I read when I got into real estate was E-Myth. Michael Gerber E-Myth. So I always had this thought of, working on versus in the business.
Yep.
So knowing that people, had to run the systems, but always having a balance between people and systems. All repeatable tasks have to be sort of outlined and put together in a way where they can just happen systematically and get the right personalities. And I didn't answer the other part of that, but the right personalities, the SC personalities, to run those systems, and they just have comfort in systems. They don't like things to be haphazard and happen differently every time. There are people in the world, not the team leaders, but there are people in the world that like to do the same task over and over and over again. And to not put the systems in place is doing a disservice for those people and your burnout admin.
And by the way, they can't put your systems in place.
Yeah.
Like, that's another piece that is really important to understand. You can't hire a SC or CS and say, hey, build the system. That's typically something that you pay a guy like you to consult with. My world, there's three ways to get talent on your team. You can buy talent, meaning you go out and you find somebody who's super successful and you pay for them. You can borrow talent, and that's going to larsstrategysession.com and paying a coach to come in here, or you can borrow it, meaning like a temporary service or something, and get the talent for a short term. But it's really important. SCs don't build systems. You have to, or you have to buy somebody to do it for you. But they are your operations people. Admin, marketing, they're the ones that'll do the repetitive tasks once you have it set up.
Yeah, and so the E-Myth, that on versus in, and now I'm an E-Myth certified coach, so I have access to all their tools. So that was one perspective. Like, I always knew that I was building something bigger, and I had this vision, and when I look at my org chart, I had my org chart 5 years ago, even though it was just me.
Right.
So I knew what I was building ahead of it. I knew that there was going to be sales, there was going to be operations, and they were distinct, and there was a front office and a back office. And so that helped. Having a vision helps for sure. The second thing about a self-managed company is that you need to find people that will play on your systems. So our agents know that every week we have a buyer agent meeting, and they're going to talk about their activities from the last week. And it's just a weird meeting for the person that did nothing last week and they're claiming a spot on our team. It's like, being on a Super Bowl team and not showing up to the team meeting and say, hey guys, sorry I missed every practice last week when you did 3 days. You know, it's just weird. That person's not going to last. So, and from a staff perspective, I just don't. I've got one person that runs the operations, and she makes sure that the individual, the buyer client care person, the listing client care person, the executive services, the VAs, that they're all running smoothly, and that they are empowered to run their world. And so I just don't have a desire to get into it, you know, even into any of the operational level stuff, but to know that it's being done properly.
So how do you know, like, and this is a big, I'm truly curious, like, if I'm an operations person on your team and I screw something up, how do you know about it and how do you address it, and what happens in your world around that?
Yeah, so we survey. I mean, it comes down to the client and what they thought of the experience.
Okay.
So the bottom line is that we survey every one of our clients, and those that don't give the survey back, we call them and we hound them for feedback. We leave messages like, hey, you're probably not getting in touch with us because maybe you didn't have a level 10 experience. You know, can you just do me a favor and get on the phone with me and tell me exactly how your experience was?
Right.
So making those tough calls. And before we did that, we honestly didn't know. You know, we weren't, when we first started, we weren't getting back most of our surveys.
Yep.
We had some ones, you know, that would let us know we sucked, and then we'd have some 10s, which by happenstance, you know, they're home so quickly and they had a good experience. But then I believe in the early stages of our really developing a world-class client experience, there was just a bunch of 4, 5, 6s, 7s in there, and it's really drilling down in those and finding out what was, and that was one decision we made to separate, actually to make an admin person on the listing side take it from, even from pre-listing, so they help prepare for the appointment. Once it's listed, they grab the file, get it on the market, and they're making regular calls, not in place of the listing agent, but they're making, you know, customer service calls, and they keep the file through closing. So we don't have a separate closing department on the listing side. And that was direct feedback, like consistent feedback from the handoff. Like, I just got comfortable with this person, and then you hand me off to this person, and it felt clunky. And, you know, so just listening to our clients, and that's the only way, really. If you're listening to the call and you're not servicing or surveying your clients, you just have no idea if you're doing a good job or not.
So 100% of your clients get a survey. And
100% get a survey, and not everyone submits the survey back. We make it really easy. You know, it's a paper survey, and there's a self-addressed. There's a little gift in there that they get, even if they don't send it back. But those that don't send it back, we call them. Yeah, we call them and solicit that feedback.
Gotcha.
And really go after it. You know, if they were a 1 and they just don't want to do it, tell me exactly why you think we suck.
Right.
And nobody wants to hear that, but it's the only way to get better.
Yeah. No. I mean, so. How would you get started, like, if you're a real estate person and you want to start implementing that feedback system? And that's, again, in the build mode, right? Because that will give you the feedback required to make adjustments and changes in your systems. So how does a person start doing that? And by the way, guys, if you have questions, like, I got a little box over here that says questions. So you guys can actually type in here a bunch of questions for Lars, because we're getting towards that part where we get to pick his brain if you have an individual question, which I love. But anyway, so how would a person get started implementing a feedback system?
Yeah, so let me pull it up here real quick. Ours is very it's very simple, but it's very powerful. Let me pull it up here real quick. All right.
You can tell this is unscripted because Lars is pulling up slides that he didn't have ready. I love how the calls always kind of take their own shape.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so let me pull it up here. I've got it pulled up. Let me share my screen. That one should be it. All right, so now I should be doing a screen share.
Yep, we have it.
Yeah, so this is a one-page client survey. This is Net Promoter Score, so there's no magic in this. It's Google Net Promoter Score. It's one page with a $10. There's a self-addressed envelope, this piece of paper, and a $10 Starbucks gift card in an envelope to every closing. and it just says we want to know how did we do. Dear valued client, first of all, congrats. Would you mind answering 3 short questions? This question here, number 1, this is straight net promoter score. And exactly the word, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer your friends and family to the Lars Group? Very unlikely or very likely?
Yeah.
So 9s and 10s are good, 7s and 8s are sort of neutral, and then below 7, you've got to reach out to those people and find out what you could have done differently. Would you use our services again? Question 2 really isn't necessary, but question 3, we just solicit a testimonial.
Yeah.
So we just ask their name, their agent name, and 100% confident. We want to be them to be confident in referring them to us, and so this works really, really well. And I could send this to you if you want to send it out to everybody.
Yeah, that'd be great. We've got you on a landing page that we'll attach to the replay. So if you want to email that over. As you were talking, I think there's some real values. One, I think the thing that I would take away from this if I was listening is Lars measures everything, and he's got these different marketing pillars that he perfected before he moved to the next one. And I think that's a big deal. The next is a self-managed team, but I had a question around that. What do those meetings look like? How does a person now we're seeing your email, buddy.
No, that's all right.
How does a person implement a self-managed team meeting, and what do they look like?
Yeah, so the reason you saw my email is I just emailed that client survey to you.
Awesome.
You have it on your email. So so Tuesday is the day that I'm in the office, and we have it is.
And that's the one thing that you still do for your team.
Yeah, so let me pull it up here because I've got a agent training probably on here. Yeah, here we go.
Yep.
So is it still showing my screen?
No, I can see your beautiful face now.
All right, so so we have a very very thought out, and I'm going to show it again here because it's just easier for me to talk to. So we have an agenda that we follow every Tuesday. So there are a few things that we have to get done every Tuesday. So we go through every appointment that we went on in the last week.
Yep.
And we review every appointment. The ones that we got, if we got them at a good price. The ones we didn't get, if we got beat, why did we get beat? We make follow-up calls to them to find out what we could have done differently.
Yep.
The appointments we have coming up, active listing reviews. So then the listing partners break off and go with Kara, our listing client care coordinator, to make sure that gets handled. Then 10 o'clock we do a buyer meeting. Mm-hmm. So every buyer agent they do weekly trackers, so they're tracking their activities through the week, and they present those trackers to the team. So that's just a way that the team is accountable to themselves. Real quick, made me think of the book 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni.
I love that book.
Yeah, so that's a book that if you have any team, 3 or 4 members, you got to go through that process and have everyone read it and do the exercises. We do new buyer appointments and showing appointments, reviews, and updates, and then we talk about challenges, what's working, what's not working. We'll do some role play, some fun things at that meeting. Then we do the team sales meeting, where this is positive. We're doing raving fan reviews. We always start with positive focus. I go around the room and I ask for one thing, one win, one personal or professional win. We go through team results. We're big on, let me know if you can see it when I go over here.
We have it. You have a dashboard, yep.
Yeah, so we're big on everyone knowing the score every time. So the goal this year is to write $96 million worth of real estate, and the team goes to Mexico. So it's going to be like a $50,000 trip that I'll bring everyone and their spouses to, like, the nicest resort in Mexico.
Yeah.
Like total high-end resort. So we're at $28.5 million now, and we're going to crush it. We're going to blow through $110 million is my guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, we do have a question, so that's fun. So there's always so much to do on a daily basis. How do you build systems? Is there a system index of systems so that you can show prospective staff later? Yeah, so this is actually a really cool question. So, and not to sell what I do. That's not the point of this. But we just had an intensive workshop. So part of my coaching program is 2 intensive workshops in Charlotte, but the one that we just had was a team building intensive. And we went through a process. It was one of the 7 sessions that I had
where it was your system strategy. So we went through an organizational strategy, and we built out the three, what your 1, 3, 5-year organizational chart looks like, and we went through a system strategy. And generally, people build systems out of necessity. So they have frustrations or challenges and like, oh shit, I'm going on a lot of listing appointments. I better have a process to set up for listing appointments. So the pre-appointment process, doing comparables or whatever market analysis you do. Then there are, things that are more like planning type things, midterm initiatives, which you can, that you're gonna. I can't think of an example, but
spring is coming. Spring is coming, and you're going to launch a new campaign out because
so stuff that you can sort of plan for a little bit ahead of it. But it's literally just thinking about the things in your business, and we have a process to do that. We went through it at the intensive, where you know something has to happen over and over and over again, and you've got to get it streamlined. Where, like for example, Mukul, I don't know if I pronounce your name right. But if you're going out on a listing appointment and every time you're starting with a blank desk and you're just putting it together on the fly, a simple system is the 5 things you needed for every listing appointment is in a checklist, and you only have to work on 1 of them. You can have an admin work on 4 of them, and your listing packets are pre-made. So you can grab a listing packet, someone else can put together, you do the 5 or 7 comps or whatever you do, hand them to somebody, they put together the equity evaluation, and you've got 10 or 15 minutes into it versus an hour and a half like most agents would have into it. So that's just an example of a system, but everything is a system. Like the way that we run our Tuesdays and with the way we run those meetings meetings are very much dialed in. I don't go into a meeting guessing what I'm going to talk about. It's completely dialed in, and it gets a little bit repetitive, and I try to bring in different elements to make it fun, and we do training and personal development type stuff, but it's seeing the 5 or 6 things in your business that need attention right now. So our buyer system has 9 elements to it. It starts with a position agreement, a buyer lead management policy, buyer packets, buyer presentation. There's like 3 or 4 tracking tools, and the weekly success tracker. It's a broader category of buyer system, but there's 9 elements to it. So the cool thing, and not a plug on coaching, but I've developed all the systems, and the goal is to help them be as plug-and-play as possible for my clients.
Well, and I want to kind of point out, I mean, if you're building new systems, it's always start with the highest value thing first, and usually that's lead gen and some sort of a marketing, and at some point then it becomes operations because you get so busy, and then at another point it becomes leadership and maybe even hiring talent. So I mean, you chunk them up, and something, and I think you'll love this, Lars, something that everybody hears about a buyer night, like we're going to prospect tonight, or we're going to do it in the morning, we're going to bring, everybody gets together and has some food, and it's like who can set the most listing appointments or buyer appointments, everybody has done that. But at some point, you get to your team will get so big, and you have so many people. We actually do something called a platform morning, where our team will work on all the systems and processes that we have to do, and it can be we do it 2 hours every 2 weeks on Fridays. Friday mornings, first things from 8:30 to 10:30 is what we call platform mornings, and we work on systems that need to be updated, systems that are broken, systems that need to be expanded or scaled, and I mean, everything from lead gen to leadership to, what do we do when a bill comes in the door? So like that's another opportunity so that it doesn't feel like you're by yourself building it, and everybody can kind of get into that process of doing it.
Yeah, and to make a note, even if you're solo right now, carve out 2 hours every week. I like Friday afternoons. I mean, if you're in production, it may be a little bit slippery if people want to go out and look at homes, but some block of time where you could stick to it every week. And just a couple hours where you're either going to be working on your goals, looking at your goals, working on your vision, but working on, we call them multiplier projects. So there's 5 projects that each one of my clients are working on at a given time that once they're in place, they have a multiplying effect in their business. So, a recruiting system is a good example. We have a recruiting system that brings in like every other day we get a pretty good quality candidate through our recruiting system, and we only hire like 1 out of 10. So and we bring 2 classes in a year, but that's pretty dialed in. There's not much we need to do to keep those flow of candidates coming in. Most people hire out of desperation, like you were saying earlier, and they're not hiring the right people. They're like, oh, you want to come on my team? I've got too many leads, and they don't have the funnel in place to bring those people in. So yeah, all right, good.
What are you giving away, by the way? Because we're getting close to wrapping up. Remind everyone we've got opportunity for 5 minutes or so of questions. That first one was a really good one. But tell us about what you're giving away to everybody who's listening, and they can get on the replay too.
Yeah, so you mean the strategy session?
Yeah, well, I thought you were giving something away, like Lars' blueprint for team implementation.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right, cool. Yeah, so, and I'm going to share my screen again. So the goal, I have this 18-page blueprint, and it takes you through it's 18 pages, and I hate to say it because most people won't even read 18 pages, but it takes you through in detail my progression in real estate, how I went from this survival phase, which some of you may be at, some of you be in the ramp or the scale stage, but how I took my business all the way from those early days where I wasn't making a lot of money, I was excited, a little naive, a lot of people drop out, all the way through the build stage into the inspire stage, which is really a lot of fun, but there's all these new skills and giving up control, and there's just you're feeling uncomfortable the whole time through that, and then really to get to the time, financial freedom, and just being able to give back and ultimately having something that you own. And so this report is that progression, so I don't know if I've sent it over to you guys already, or if you want me to email it, but it takes you through that whole progression, and there's a lot of good value in there.
Yeah, I think we have it, and it's pretty cool. Let me there's the mission, but we're gonna wrapping up real quick, but here's the hard questions. Lars, what's your next step? How are you? I mean, I know you're doing the coaching, and that's brilliant. But where do you see yourself in 3 to 5? I want to give people perspective because I think it's possible for them to get to the $1 million. Like and with your help, I think it's really possible. But what's your next? It's
an interesting question because I think I've been playing a little bit small, and it's funny that event that we were both at. I mean, really stretched my thinking a bit along the lines of what's possible. Mostly, that I can really start to look at identifying people who can build out. I've always built my business in a way that it was really building a true E-Myth franchise prototype. What if, you need to franchise your business to 10,000 different locations? That's the mindset I've had all along, never thinking that I would do it. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be a leg of what I'm focusing on, having 10 teams around the country, each doing 50 million plus of real estate, plus my own doing 150 million. So in the next 3 years, I'll get my team to 600 sides, 250 average price point, 150 million in volume, and then going to select markets and identifying the right people to build up 50 million plus teams. So to have a real estate group that does 600, 700, 800 million worth of real estate with the same philosophies that we have, highly productive agents, 50 plus transactions each, just a different model that's not out there right now. A very profitable model for everybody, where everyone is doing well. There's no true corporate entities in these different markets. And then Real Estate B School is what I founded. That I believe every new agent should learn how to make money in real estate, and there's not something available right now. So part of a bigger vision for me is, most of what I do now is consulting with people that have already got through the start phase, and so they're ramping or scaling, and help them firm up their systems and get to the inspire, lead, exit phase. That's kind of what I specialize in, is this middle part. But what if I could develop an online course that could get people that could, systematically, take the dropout rate from 80% over 2 years down to 50% because everyone does my online course.
Right.
You know, a very affordable online course. I think that's a huge opportunity. And then I've got 2 young kids, you know, so
Mm.
I just know the next 10 years are going to be 10 years that I never want to look back and, um, you know, and miss out on things. So it's having family adventures, and, you know, my goal is to work 3 days a week. I'm working 4 days now, so to cut 1 day out, which is going to happen in less than a year, and really to focus on my relationships, you know, and really making sure my kids get off on the right foot, and they sort of know who they are as they enter the real world.
Wow. It's an amazing vision. It's an amazing life. Lars, I really, really appreciate your time today. You want to leave anybody with like last words? Like, what's your one motto that you'd run across? And guys, you know, visit larsstrategysession.com for a free thing. We're gonna have his 18-page giveaway on this replay. So if you're here, you're gonna get it. And what would you leave everyone with? What's that one thing?
You know, a lot of people that I come into contact with, I mean, they're at the point where things have suffered in their life to get to the point where they're at. So, I mean, even like divorce and health and just things that aren't worth it. So, the approach, you know, is to get there with balance. So to preserve and improve relationships. You know, my health is it's never been better.
Yeah.
You know, and so to really pay attention to a balanced approach to it all. And you know, I don't lead with that. You know, it's easier for me to say, hey, I work on Tuesdays, let me coach you, and people will be like, yeah, coach me. You know, but it's way more than that. It's making sure your wife likes you. It's making sure your net worth. A lot of these guys doing a lot of transactions, but their net worth is stagnant.
Yeah.
They're barely even net worth positive, let alone adding 50, 60, 70 grand a month, which is possible.
98% of realtors who I self-identified as being 100% realtors die with a zero net worth.
Yeah, it's because they don't focus on it. Anything you focus on, like I've never run a marathon, but I'm going to run a marathon this year.
Right.
Well, so it's only because I'm focusing. I'm not because I mean a lot of people run marathons, but it's just focusing on the things that matter. So I would say that. I mean, find someone who can show you the path, cut out the pitfalls, you know, help you get there profitably but balanced, where you can preserve those relationships and, you know, get younger every year, so to speak. And yeah, it's an amazing opportunity being an entrepreneur, and just being able to go out into the world and do what you want to do versus live by someone else's rules.
Awesome. Well, Lars, thanks for your time, man. Appreciate
for sure. Thanks
appreciate you.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Hi, Joe here with MyOutDesk. I hope you enjoyed this video clip, and before you go, I want to give you this free tool that our clients, other agents just like yourself, and our virtual assistants use every day. It's designed to improve productivity. You can use it to keep yourself on track or simply hand it off to your virtual assistant, allowing you to focus on doing what you do best. That's right, selling real estate. Spend your time on commission-generating activities only. Allow your virtual assistant to do the rest. So grab your free checklist right now.